and welcome to another episode of Mere Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions. I think I said coffee roaster, not roasters, but anyway, this is the warm-up sessions. I'm super stoked about this one. We have a guest on the pod, which is super exciting. My dear friend, Micah Jones.
Sir.
Yes, super pumped. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. It's going to be fun. It's going to be chill. Yeah. It's going to be just good times.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But, first, you already know. We got to do our first kind of sip late. Juice. I mean, folks don't know that we record this later in the day. I mean, I guess if you watch the video, you can kind of see the street behind me, especially. Like, you can see the cars driving by and the little bokeh, little lights.
little lights. Yeah.
I always watch that because sometimes, I mean, this might be bad, but I watch the podcast on the TV sometimes in my living room.
Yeah, you got to.
I got to make sure. I got to keep myself in line.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's super fun. But here we go.
Here we go. So what do we brewed up today?
I can't tell you. First, we got to drink it.
Gotcha.
Well, I guess I kind of mentioned it, but I'll give a more formal intro. Well, it's already a problem. Honestly, this coffee, like this batch, I mean, y'all, Mark is not on the screen, but he's in the room. He's definitely a live audience today, and also like fact checker, and also everything else he does, because Mark runs the podcast. I'm just a figurehead here. Anyway, he's nodding his head in the back there.
He's not having it.
But Mark and I cupped this coffee recently. We bought some samples, or got some samples in, looking to buy new coffees to bring on our menu. It's a tough year for coffee in general. There's like this shortage of coffee, especially Guatemalan coffees. It's really hard to get some good ones right now. Our friends on Onyx don't even have some. But anyway, we got some of these coffees from our other friends, and we were tasting them on the cupping table. And this coffee, like, Mark roasted it 3 different ways, and every single roast was unique and tasty. But this brew tastes absolutely garbage. I mean, it also, like, if you look at it, like, it's like see-through because it's pretty weak.
It's a little watery.
It's so watery.
There's a little bit of juice that wants to be there. I'll give it to you. Yeah. It's definitely
There's some kind of complexity there.
Yeah.
There is. There's like almost like a compote type of kind of berry stuff going on. Yeah. This coffee is excellent. Like, I totally forgot when we ordered samples. I was talking to Mark, and I thought it was a natural, like a very, very clean natural.
Yeah.
And Mark is like, no, that's not even close. This coffee's washed.
Let's try again.
Yeah, but it's tasty. Yeah. I wish I would have done better on the grind size. I went with like a typical like 12 on our EK, and it's calibrated. I mean, this EK has way more settings than our EK at the cafe.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looks nice.
Oh, shoot, y'all. I didn't even start a timer. We're already rambling.
We're just rolling.
Yeah, just rolling.
Just hanging out.
It's cool. Yeah.
Day in the life.
Anyway, not a good cup, but a tasty coffee in general.
Yeah, it's nougaty aftertaste is in there.
Yeah, it's pretty totally good. Sweetness, nice sweetness. Yeah. Anyway.
Nice, Mark.
Should have let Mark brew the coffee as well.
What a guy. He just does it all.
He does it all.
What can this man do?
Why am I on the podcast? Totally wild. But sick. I'm super. I mean, the funny thing is, we're sitting at Narrative that one day, and I know Mark is sitting on that bench. I'm sitting like across from him. Then you walk up, and Mark is like, "Yo, you want to be on the podcast?" I was like, I was even surprised. I was like, "Yo, that's dope. Hell yeah, I'll have Mike on the podcast. That's the way to go."
A little surprised, but I mean, hey, here we are.
Here you are, live in the studio.
Yes, sir.
But I'm super excited to talk with you because, one, I consider you a friend. And it's been so exciting and so fun and so good to get to know you as a person. But also, we've worked together in coffee for almost a couple of years, something like that.
A little over 2 years.
Yeah. So, and that's been super fun because I've seen you grow from like entering kind of the specialty scene and then coming over to Narrative and just like running the bar. I mean, I keep saying, like, today I was training Emily, and I keep saying, like, Micah, he's like one of the fastest baristas, like, I know, like, you, doing so well. So I'm super pumped to see that.
Appreciate you.
But I think, well, what I wanted to bring up is, funny thing is just remembering, in our one-on-one, we talked about like affirmation or whatever. And I'm like, so many things kind of my mind when I think about you. One of the things is, I love Cornel West and his writings and just his desire to see things made right in the world and just his desire for like social justice and history and all of that. And no, you don't remind me of Cornel West, but you do remind me, which I mean, whatever.
That's fine.
He talks about like prophetic people in just the world, and I'm not talking about the religious term. I'm more or less talking about folks who see the reality of how things are and are willing to be in a voice that sees beyond the present reality, like sees what it could be. And that has a lot to do with identity. And I think I've shared this with you and you're like, dude, you probably just don't know me. You're just making things up. Because like to a degree, like what the thing that like most like connected me to you and just our friendship has been like just your heart to to see people, but also to have this like, and this may sound cliche, but like this balanced viewpoint where you recognize like what's going on holistically and you kind of see outside of things, but you also like with so much confidence stay in your own lane. And I appreciate that a lot. Like everything you bring to my life, to the coffee community in Bellingham, like I'm just grateful. Like, thank you. Thank you for staying in coffee. It's been a up and down ride. So
Wow, what an introduction. I hope I can live up to all the hype that you just gave me. Wow, but yeah, thanks, Serge. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, like we've had conversations about this, but like evidently like you have had such a large hand on shaping like my perspectives, not just in like the coffee world specifically, just in life in general. But yeah, like I think usually like we have this kind of ongoing joke between us two. Whenever Sergi kind of like compliments me or says I'm doing something well, I usually just tell him that it's his fault because I like everything that I've literally learned in terms of coffee is all coming from you. So like everything that you see it's like doing well in me, it's complete reflection of you. So it's been like super cool, dude, just to work with you and just to learn from you every day. And
I think both of us should give a big shout out to Trey. It's also Ernie, partially Trey's fault.
My dude. Seriously.
All caps Trey Music.
Yeah. Streaming on all the platforms.
Yeah, on billboards in Nashville.
Exactly.
Like, what the?
Exactly.
What a guy.
Incredible.
But yeah, and speaking of that, I remember, well, I don't know. We'll dive into that later. First, when it comes to you and your like personal coffee journey, do you remember that memorable first coffee experience?
Yes, I do. And actually you were there for this experience. I believe it was the summer of 2020. I was kind of like getting my foot into the door of like specialty coffee, starting over at Makeworth. We had a guest roaster on. I believe it was Happy Homes. Oh, yeah. Wow. Incredible coffee. I believe it was a Rwandan coffee. But yeah, I think that was kind of like my first initial step into the coffee industry. And I think it was also like my beginning of like learning how to like use like a gooseneck kettle or like to make sure your flow rate is right and all the things that come with doing a pour over well. And I think that like us learning how to dial that in, but also tasting a coffee that's like, whoa, did I just make this? Or did I just brew this cup of coffee? I didn't even know it was possible. But I just have distinct remembered like the coffee tasting like a cherry cola or like kind of like a strawberry ice cream kind of thing.
Remember that? That was actually Costa Rican Las Lavas.
Oh, Costa Rican.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. It was so good. And I think that was like my first like understanding that like coffee can taste like crazy things and not just like super bitter and dark and these kind of things. And then I think my second was definitely your Jorge Mendes of the 2020 crop. Oh, dude, I don't know about it. It reminded me of like a chocolate covered orange. Just like the citrusy, but also like the balance of like the sweet chocolateness. Dude, that stuff was good. Yeah. So honestly, cool. Those two coffees, man, really just pushed me into this whole world of coffee, which has been honestly so cool. So
that's awesome. But before specialty and before like the whole pour over thing, because I mean, would you say that pour overs or visually even before experiencing are like an icon of like third wave specialty coffee? I feel like espresso machines are common, but pour overs kind of like, oh, this cafe kind of knows what they're talking about. I mean, it could also be fake a lot of the times.
True. They can just try their best.
But it's a symbol, right?
Exactly,
So before all this, you worked for another coffee chain. And was that your first like introduction? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. I guess that would be my official kind of foot into the door of the coffee scene. I think for me, like my first initial interaction with coffee wasn't necessarily like coffee itself, but I think it would like paired with the experience of going to get a cup of coffee. I think like one of like my core memories is like in I don't know, junior high, waking up every morning and me and my mom going to the Starbucks drive-through, and I would get a white chocolate steamer with some whipped cream, and that was just like the best day, or like the best start of my morning, because it's like I get to go and like hang out with my mom, but also just like experience coffee, which wasn't even coffee for me. But just like that routine thing of like going to a place, going to a special place with somebody who's special to me, kind of just held like such a big weight for me. I kind of just felt like I always wanted to like not necessarily work coffee, but like be in a position of like being a barista and like being able to like harvest community and kind of just like hold interactions with people. So I would say that was kind of like my initial like push into it. And then I started working for a chain up here and kind of just seeing the different levels of kind of how things played out, and just like learning the different things. And then I guess like working behind the bar, getting more used to like coffees and like what do I like and what I don't like. So I think that it was like very foundational in my learning, but also like taken away from the tools that I learned there of like the fast pace, being able to work with others, all those kind of things lay like a really strong foundation to go to be where I am right now. So
so a lot of the things you just shared had a lot to do with one, space, I feel like, or even like you were bringing that example of when you and your mom would go in the drive-through and you wouldn't even get coffee, but it felt like a coffee run because it was special and special, and specialty coffee is special, like, you know what I mean? Like all of that makes me think like back to a episode that Mark and I recently recorded. Is like, will there ever be a time when, you know, home baristas are so good that no one will, like, everybody's a home barista and no one goes to a cafe? Any thoughts?
I think I have a lot of thoughts. I did listen to that episode. Nice. But yeah, I feel like you both covered such a covered a lot of ground in that conversation. And I do have to agree that like we are at a point in the world where we have never tasted the coffee the way that we have, because technology has advanced in such a way that has allowed us to do what we do. But I think that Third Wave specifically holds such, such an honor, I guess, because of like that community that brings into, just like sharing a cup with another person. And then like, I think Mark talked about like, you can have people coming into your home and like brewing coffee that way. But I think that like, Maxwell Mooney has said multiple times, and I think you have said it on here as well, that like everybody needs their third place. So that you have your work, your home, and then you need that another place where you can go and just like you feel home or feel like you don't have to like show different fronts in order to fit in, but just like coming with yourself and that being enough. I think that's what specialty coffee hits, is like that third place where people can go that's not their home, that's not their workplace, but a place where they can come and be seen and be known. I think that is just so special. So I mean, you and I always talk about like the importance of keeping hospitality paramount. Like that is at the forefront of third wave or specialty coffee. I mean, this is kind of a pointed question, but I thought like, is that kind of what brought you like into coffee and keeps you in coffee? Or if it's not, like what was kind of the shift? Because I remember when I interviewed you for Makeworth, you were sharing about going to school and getting your history degree and possibly teaching or
in that vein. So like, I know at that point, coffee must have not been a career choice yet.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think beginning where I was at like, this like second wave of going through the drive-through and like getting a quick super cup or getting a quick cup of coffee, was just something that I would just like, I go to work and that's what I do. I got to earn money. I'm a student and like I have other things to worry about. So I guess it was something that wasn't really on my radar, but kind of the components about what I was doing is what I believe I fell in love with. Like the being able to hold just a posture of learning, but also being able to just like see people and just like be hold a space for them that like they can come into and just like be themselves, and like seeing every single person that comes to the door is something that I believe is like kind of like at the core of who I am. I'm just making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. And I think that specialty coffee allows me to do that. But also I think moving over to Makeworth and like being able to learn from you, I'll say this because like I will never like get used to working with you or like get used to like holding the same space as you, just because like you scoff at that, but it's like you just like take bar and you just pour like these stupid things, and I just look at that and you're like, oh, that sucks. I see so many errors in that, and I'm like, Serge, are you kidding me? Like I can only dream of pouring something like that, and it's just like a surreal thing that happens every day that I'm like, wow, I'm just so grateful to be where I am. So yeah, I think that you were such a large part in pulling me into like this huge industry that I had no idea had existed. And so I guess like your leadership through that and like my own like curiousness and like wondering about this huge industry that's happening just like enticed me more. And I was like, maybe this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So
I think you really have a gift in hospitality. That's like, whether that's coffee or something in that realm. And I think coffee is a good avenue to serve and be hospitable because it's so big, like on a bigger scale. What I was going to say is like the funny thing is I always thought you were an extrovert for one reason, because you did incredible guest service. Like you were talking to folks, like to people you don't like, I don't know, you were just so, I hate to say this, but like bubbly, like, you know what I mean? And then you're like, yo, like my dream is to be like tucked away with headphones on a roastery, man.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. No one talking to me. It's like,
exactly. And I was like, what? Like that's unreal.
Yeah.
But that also shares or like reveals like your heart in general for community, like for people aside from coffee. That even as an introvert, you see the necessity to bring people together and to create room at the table, because what you inspired me a lot also before we even met, because I remember when the murder of George Floyd happened and Black Lives Matter Black Lives Matter has existed for a while, but that like highlighted it. And I saw your post was about social justice and about the situation, but also just you and I and Trey would go out and we've also talked about the need of creating spaces that are like so much more inclusive and have a diverse range. Like, so people like, I mean, I hate to stereotype, but like there's some spaces that are like made comfortable for white people. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm a cisgender white guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that, like, I know those spaces, but you bring this element into the cafe that's like not only inclusive for people that look, act, and like are like you, but you're bringing space that makes like literally like inclusiveness possible. So on a bigger scale, like how do you see yourself leading in that area when it comes to maybe like working in green coffee? Because you and I talked about working in roasting. I know we've talked about some other roasting companies that may not have the best coffee, but the moves and the things that they're doing are so impactful because coffee is more than a beverage, and coffee is also a international platform, right?
Yeah.
Can you, sorry, that was like not a good question. Can you share more about like that kind of vision that I think at least I see in you? Like you're like, okay, yeah, latte art is cool. That's dope. Extraction is cool. But what's the big picture of coffee and how does it impact the world?
Yeah. Wow. What a loaded question. But that's so good. That's good stuff. I think like at the beginning of this, like my curiosity wasn't necessarily that, I feel like I had to, or I guess my curiosity wasn't my job necessarily. It was like I just went to work and then I go and do the things that I actually care about. But I think where I get curious is like, how can I bring the things that I'm really passionate about, but also collide them with other things, like other parts of my life, like my work. And I guess for some reason I thought that those things had to be separate, like the way, or like my values couldn't be brought into a workplace. But I think that like with our conversations and conversations with Trey included, being able to like build that bridge of like, oh, we can have host community, we can be equitable at all ends, but also like do our jobs. And kind of just like this impactful thing of like, this cafe can be really powerful if we want it to be. And I think that a lot of different places kind of like go into cafes or kind of what they're doing with a different point of view. But for us to like kind of collide those things was like, whoa, like all of these things are clicking to my brain. And I think that it's like really important work, making sure that people are seen, that equity is like distributed at all different levels, whether it's the farmer, the producer, the exporter, every little detail that like all of it becomes representative by the barista. So it's like not the barista representing the cafe that they're standing in, but representing everything else that kind of came before them. And I think that's also another passion, or another reason why I'm so passionate is like, we have so much responsibility to like serve something that not only is like we're proud of and like we really care about, but also like so many other hands have had a piece of this, and just making sure that like that's represented well by myself or as a barista, and from there like we're able to see equity being distributed, and like making sure that people can have foods on their table, because like that's so important. It's like, why are we doing what we're doing if like people are not, their needs are being met? So I think collectively it's like kind of the things that I'm seeing that I want to see change in the world, but also something I'm super passionate about, and kind of merging those things together, which has been such a mind blowing thing to come to, but it's been super cool.
Yeah, I mean, you've witnessed Mark and I talk about this, and you and I have talked about the fact that when we actually label the coffees for Mirror, we write the producer's name. And that's another thing that, for example, Manhattan does the same. And me and Max have even talked about the fact that we're at a place, it's an amazing, or we're at a time where the reality and the dream of third wave is like coming to pass. When the wave started, everybody was talking about, we need to, shine the light on the producer, the farmer, and what you were talking about, like bring equity to the whole supply chain. Like we're seeing little bits of that happen. And one of those ways is like, we do recognize the producer's hard work. Like you remembered Jorge Mendez, like, you know what I mean? Like that's big. Mark and I haven't met Jorge. I mean, Jorge Mendez like had our bag of coffee that Dan DeWard brought. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. That's cool. But you and I, like we have met like Edwin. He owns a farm in Guatemala. Like we have we're putting a name and sometimes even a face to these coffees, which is so much bigger than a beverage. You know what I mean? And to me, that's literally, that's my dream, like that as well. Like what I want to do in Indo is one of the reasons, because Indonesian coffee has a bad rep. Like it's people say like mean stuff about Indonesian coffee, and Indonesia has a very, very bad history with coffee. It's a lot of colonization. Like it was the worst of the worst. But I'm like in my like mind and heart is like, oh, how can we like redeem those elements to actually give back to the producers, like to like Desatelajuk, like to give back to those 5 farmers, like basically they're woman-owned farms. Like these folks like are trying to create a market. Like Taylor, my buddy, once said, like all these folks they just want a market so they can sell their coffee. Yeah. And we're part of that solution.
Exactly.
So like I'm stoked, like I'm right there with you, like super excited about that. And I think that's totally a lot. I get so excited about topics like that, and I'm like, where are we going to just keep talking about this? But we don't have all day freaking, it's a 30-minute podcast. Like people are like having a hard time to pay attention and stuff. But yeah, I'm just super stoked, man. Thanks for being my friend. Thanks for like working with me. Thanks for being patient. Sometimes like I know like people always say like he's an Enneagram 1 and he's a manager. That's a problem. Like,
that's the best problem to have, honestly.
So like and I'm super stoked to see you grow in general, to pursue like those opportunities and maybe dreams, and to see how this experience that you're taking in, like the things you are learning in the coffee industry, hopefully you stay in the coffee industry, but even if you don't, I want to see what you will create with them in the future. That's exciting.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
You're 10 out of 10 human. I'm super pumped about it. Like,
I appreciate you.
So super fun. But yeah, like any other thoughts? I know it's kind of like lame question to ask. Like, hey, final thoughts?
I mean, I already said it, but I'm going to reiterate that, like, dude, everything that I would do, you will have a hand on, just because of your just impact that you've had on my life. Ever since I've met you, even before I met you, when we were mutual friends on the gram. Dude, like I considered you a role model. And just like your just perspectives on life, and just like how you invite people, not only into like just your space, but you welcome them wholeheartedly, has just been such a real example to me about hospitality. And I'm just super blessed to know you, so I appreciate you a lot.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dudes.
Well, we've never like finished the thing with a high five, but we should try.
It's a little crispy.
Yeah, that was crispy. I hope the mics picked that up.
Me too. It'll be awkward.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thanks again. Another episode. Super stoked to have talked with Micah.
Thanks for
Glad that he's here. But yeah, folks, remember, I guess we end this. Mark usually says something like, reflect what's good.
That's so
kind of
good.
what we do.
I like that stuff.
I like that. Cool.
That's good.
All right, folks. Cheers.
Cheers.